I'm Shivani Gupta and welcome to the Ask Shivani podcast. I believe that one of the best presents that you can give yourself is time to be able to sit down and ask yourself some questions. I believe that the quality of the questions that you ask yourself will determine the quality of your life. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ask Shivani podcast. I'm really lucky. I have got Jo Blowfield, who meets us today all the way from New Zealand, which also happens to be in lockdown. I had the privilege of meeting Jo through a common mastermind that we're both a part of. We'll talk about that a bit later. But let me tell you a little bit about Jo first. So Jo has run a bunch of things. She's got a bunch of experience that is also going to help you as you listen to her, but also if you then want to follow her later on. She has been the host of the Business Power Hour. She is the owner of the marketing company, or TMC, director of Sales Mastery Company. She's also started a new business called Business and Sequence, and also got her own podcast. So many things that I'm hoping that she's going to share with us about now that she is really spending a lot of time educating women in business around health and wealth. Welcome, Jo.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited that you are here. Jo, tell us firstly a little bit about, your journey, both around personal and business, and I guess what have been some of your major turns. So tell us about good, bad, and the ugly, often things that are not big to other people, but they were really big transformational moments for you in your life.
Yeah, sure. I'm really excited to be able to share with your listeners. So as Shivani said, my name's Jo Blowfield. I am a wife and I've got two children, two beautiful girls. I grew up in a small town called New Plymouth, or Taranaki, in New Zealand. And I grew up on a street called Adventure Street, which to me was just the most amazing name for a street. But it was a street that was in one of the poorest suburbs in New Plymouth. So I grew up in between two gangs. So my street was right in the middle of those two gangs. I went to one of the poorest schools in New Plymouth, right through until Standard 4. And then when I was Standard 4, I had a best friend called Kelly Parker, who decided that her parents moved to the other side of town, and so she changed schools. So I begged my parents to change schools for me. So they've let me go. I don't know how they have managed to afford it, but I changed schools. And when I changed schools, it put me onto another path in life. So when I changed schools, it was it was a private girls' school. And in that school, it had a lot of people who owned businesses. So a lot of kids that came from privilege, which I didn't come from. So I just got to see a different way of life at that school. And then when I was 16, I decided to leave school because I had a terrible typing teacher who wasn't the nicest to me. So I decided to leave school. And my parents said that I could leave school if I went straight into full-time job. One thing with my parents is that my parents I've come up from a poor family. My parents lived from paycheck to paycheck, but one of the things that they had, which was one of their biggest values, was work hard. They were hard workers, so they installed that into all of my brothers and myself. I've got 4 brothers, and I got a full-time job, and it was working at a fish and chip shop, which, for a new family who'd just come in from China, they couldn't speak English, I couldn't speak Chinese. So it was really meeting in the middle and figuring out, and I was able to help them with a few things in their business. But then I also decided that I wanted to kind of step up into another job, and I got a job with a family who owned a small music store, and it was a family-run business with a mother, a husband, a son and daughter. And I got to see how small business ran. And I went from making cups of teas, cleaning the shop, up to managing their music stores. And I absolutely loved it. And to me, I just got this really deep insight in how to run a business, how it can all work if you're working together as a team, and how you can grow your business. And I moved over to Australia. I got married to my lovely husband, who's English. And we started a great life in Sydney, and then we went and we saw Robert Kiyosaki in live in Australia, and it really changed and pivoted a lot of my thought process in my life, and it really grounded me and made me think, I want to own a business. So my husband and I, we hunted high and low for a business. We wanted to be in the hospitality industry. So we looked at businesses that were just holes on the wall making coffee, turning over a great profit, to businesses that had 20 staff making no profit. And so we looked at all of the businesses, we looked at it, and then we decided that before we did anything though, we'd take a break and we'd do a bit of traveling. So we did the traveling. My husband got headhunted over to Switzerland by a big startup internet company. So we went and did that, and then we found out that we were pregnant, which changes everything. You think your life is going one way, and then you find out that you're pregnant, and so we reassess. So we decided, when I told my husband that I was pregnant, he was in Switzerland at the time. I was back in Australia getting our house ready to be sold, and he just said to me, there's no other place that I want to bring up children other than New Zealand. He said, I'm coming home, we're moving back to New Zealand. And so that is exactly what we did. We packed up, we sold up, and we moved back to New Zealand, back to Adventure Street. Actually, we bought the house opposite my parents, so back on my favourite street. And I was 4 months into having a baby, and I looked at my husband and I said to him, I think I'm a little bit bored. I think I'd like to start a business. And then that is when my business life started. So 17 years ago now, we started our business, the marketing company. And it started off, we built it on things that I roughly knew. So we started off doing things like call center, we did credit control, you name it, we did it all. And I don't know who would let a woman with a 4-month-old baby start a business, but my husband thought it was a great idea. So off we went. And yeah, that business has just it's been through the GFC, it's been through its ups and downs. And that business is predominantly a marketing business. And then about 5 years ago, we started the Sales Mastery Company as well, so that we had sales training. That's where my husband's passion really lies. And both of those businesses have just weathered COVID, which has been a whole other big turn. And and then just recently I've looked at starting a business in sequence. So there's been kind of, through that whole time, there have been lots of highs, lots of lows. But I look at it now and I think 17 years later and I'm still standing.
That's incredible, Jo. That's such a great story. My favourite part was starting off on Adventure Street and ending back up on Adventure Street. Isn't it funny how many times in business we do this full circle and then we come around to it? So in 17 years in business, raising a family, moving countries, all of the different things that you've spoken about, you're faced with heaps of challenges. And obviously recently, I know we were speaking at that conference where we were speaking about, COVID and how much impact it's had on so many of our businesses. So when challenges come your way, whether they're personal, whether they're business, do you have a way that you deal with them? Do you have a process? Some people journal, some people go silent, some people use a process. What's your approach when challenges come your way? Do you have like a tried and tested method that you put into practice?
I've been thinking about this recently, and when people are given challenges, it usually comes down to that fight or flight response, and I've realized that mine is definitely fight. And so whenever I'm up against anything like that, I've got one of those crazy brains that can think big picture but can also think minutely down into detail. So when I've got my back up against, whenever it's been my back up against it, I can see what we do want to achieve. And then all of a sudden my brain just kind of processes it and goes, this is what you need to do in order to get out of it. And so I'm also one too, my husband and I, we've realized that we love goals. So first thing that we do whenever we're in any challenges like that is look at what we're wanting and then look at how we're going to get there. One of the biggest things for my husband and I is that very early on when we got married, we decided that we had a couple of things that were non-negotiable for us, which was divorce wasn't an option, never an option for us. If we made each other happy, then our children will therefore always be happy. And thirdly was that we would always be each other's favourite. And so we've realised that whenever we're in trouble, if we're in it together and we're a united team, then we can do anything that we want and we can achieve anything. And so we sit down, we write out what the problem is, we look at it, we break it down, and then we just put down short little goals so that we're constantly achieving through the process. And we didn't used to celebrate those goals, but now we've realized how important it is to celebrate those goals no matter how small they are. And then we just look at knocking off sort of that big goal but in small steps.
That's amazing. I love that. I also love the fact when you said we're each other's favourite.
Yes, we are, because do you know what? It's funny because our children, and our 12-year-old in particular, will come up to me and she'll always go, oh, who's your favorite? Who's your favorite? Am I your favorite? And it's always, your dad is my favorite. And my husband will always say, your mum is my favorite. So they keep on trying to, get in there as the favorite kid or anything like that. But we've just always said, if we are right as a couple, therefore our girls will always be happy. And so, that's one of the things. But it's so funny all the time. My 12-year-old just roll her eyes at me and go, yeah, I know, Dad's your favorite.
And I think it's great for them to saying, you will grow up and leave eventually. But, my partner stays. That's great. You've just talked about your philosophy there, Joe, around, being the favourite, the way that you attack problems. Are there other leadership philosophies or books or quotes? Like, they're the things that you really try and live by that are really important to you at a core level in terms of who you are? And I know it's said in the religious places, but, I come from a culture about karma, and that karma is really important, and in a good way, as well as if you don't do the right thing. So do you have philosophies or quotes or books or other things that you go, I really try and live by that, or they are really inspiring to me in terms of how I go about life and navigating life?
My husband and I, we are Christians. So, we do meditate, and we also pray as well. But my husband and I are on the philosophy, our number one goal in life is to give as much as we possibly can, whether it's monetary or whether it's time or, advice or just even lifting other people up. But it's just our biggest goal in life. And our whole business is based around what we can do in the business in order to have profit to be able to give. And that to us is a huge motivator. And so, with being Christian, I love the values of it. And I love, being in a group of, I think, the positivity that I get from being in the groups that I'm involved in. And so, I would say we do live on abundance as well, abundance mentality. We really think that there's enough in the world for everyone. So, there's no need to fight. There's enough in the world for everyone. Those are kind of the main philosophies that my husband and I live by. Many years ago, before we were Christians, we found the book The Secret. So, we used a lot of that ethos out of that book as well. It's just more about abundance and just knowing that whatever we're needing, it will be provided. Yeah, that's us.
Yeah, and it can be really practical too, can't it? Abundance. I was listening to somebody the other day that was talking about it's not this wishy-washy thing. It's kind of knowing that there'll be enough and taking the stress out of your life on a day-to-day basis when you know that there's enough, rather than worrying about the little stuff. So that's it.
I think that COVID as well, for us anyway, has really made us live, more within our means and more just, looking at more time together and just those meaningful things in life rather than, the material things. So, I think that, for some of us, we are in really trying times, but for some of us, we're also living in special times where, we get to spend that special time with our family, and we just have, I don't know, I feel like I've had a deeper connection with my kids and my husband now that we've been in lockdown, because they can't go anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of it's forced and some of it's this natural way of, kind of the way we were meant to be. And so tell me and tell our listeners, Joe, a bit about your future aspirations. I know you've obviously started this new business a month or so ago around Sequence. Tell us more about that. Tell us about other future aspirations, again, whether they're business or there might be personal aspirations and goals that you have where you go, over the next 3, 5, 10 years, these are some of the things I want to be doing.
Yeah, we've got so many. I just spoke to my husband this morning about it, actually, because usually every year one of our big goals would be to travel. We would, at the end of the year, we would do some big overseas travel, and we would work really hard through the year knowing that we were going to get to this travel. And without that travel, we've just been kind of going, what do we do? There's no reason for us to really push so hard because we don't have that big goal. So I just spoke to my husband this morning and just said, look, we need to pick another goal because we run really well with goals. And so we're just at the moment just deciding what our kind of 12-month goal will be so that we can decide on that. But one of the big things that I've got going on, as you mentioned, is business in sequence. So, when we were at the retreat in June, I birthed this idea that I would like to stand by myself and do my own business, because my husband and I have worked together now for 16 years. I was in our business, the marketing company, for a year, and then he came in and joined me full time. So we've worked together for 17 years, and I kind of pushed him out to the front of the business, and I sat at the back doing all of the planning and everything else at the back. And now with business in sequence, it's time for me to kind of stand out the front and be the face of the business. And so, I'm just doing all of my goals around that. But all of my aspirations for that business in sequence, which we've got the podcast and we've got the membership as well, is all about, being a tribe or a community for women who we look after business, health and wealth. And because those are three pillars that I wish I'd had people around me, or a group that I could go to where I knew that I could pull information on those things. Those are three things that I wish I'd nailed through my business life a bit more. And so I'm hoping to be that for other women. I've realized that I'm a really good cheerleader. And so I'd love to cheer on women across that business, health and wealth. And so, yeah, I've got that coming out. So my goal for that, I've got a pretty big, we've got 3 tiers of goals for that business. We've got the, we've done it. The yes, we've achieved it. And then the third is we've nailed it. And it's all, but those goals are all based around giving. It's all based around how much we can give and how much of an impact we can make in the world, and how much we can give to families and things like that who are struggling and needing help. So our aspirations at the moment are just to keep growing our business as much as we can, because we know the effects that it can have if it's on fire, and if it's going in the positive direction, not just for us, but for other people. I think we gave, one of our big drivers that we do is a big Christmas box every year. So the Christmas box goes out to families in need, and it feeds something like a family of 5 for 7 days. And so we used to give big gift hampers, but now we've changed that, and we give these gift boxes out to families. And I think last year we managed to do something like 300 gift boxes. And I think my husband this year is wanting to go for anywhere between kind of 300 and 500 gift boxes. So those are kind of our short-term goals. I think our big-term goals is we're wanting to get to the Rugby World Cup in a couple of years, which I don't think that is going to happen. And my husband said that he wants to go to Brisbane for the Sydney Olympics, but I don't know if that's going to happen for the Brisbane Olympics, but I don't know if that's going to happen either. But yeah, we're just in the process at the moment of, re-looking at our goals, especially around the whole travel and there not being any.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? That was one of the ways that we kind of rewarded ourselves as well as a family. And obviously last year we cancelled our big trip that was 2 years in the making, and this year nothing's happening. And at this stage next year, we'll wait and see in terms of what happens in 2022. Jo, what about wellness? So your own wellness, you're running businesses, you have a family, you've got 2 girls, you've now got multiple businesses, you're starting up a new business. COVID's here, some of the revenue's not as high. So what are some of the things that you do to maintain your own wellness, whether it be mentally, physically, emotionally? And how often do you do it? Do you have daily things? Do you have weekly? Do you have an annual thing? What are some of the things that you do to manage your own well-being and wellness?
Yeah, it's funny because, yes, I was about 15 years in business, and then finally realized that my own health was one of the things that I had neglected through all of my business life, because we've also had a daughter who is currently 17, but we got her to international. She was one of New Zealand's top ballerinas. So she also won lots of multiple competitions overseas as well. So during my time in business, we've also got her to world stage. And even at the time, we had a 10-year-old who also competed on the world stage as well. And so I put my husband, I put my family first, I put their ambitions, and I didn't really look at myself and my health and putting myself first. One of the things as women that I think women suffer with a lot, and we don't really do much about, is brain fog. I lived for about 15 years in just a cloud of brain fog. And about a year and a half ago, that brain fog, my husband found me on the floor of our bedroom. I was crying and upset, and he said, what's going on? And I just realized, at that time, our daughter, whose dream was to be a ballerina, had gone over to Houston and was living in Houston. So I no longer had that goal. And I had to do a lot of asking of myself of who am I, without having all of these motivators in my life. Who am I? And I also realized that, I was living in this brain fog. So I actually looked for some products. On the side too, I actually own a health business too on the side. So I started that in COVID, which just ticks over and has got a really great team. So that's a global team in that. And I just started really looking at health. But the main thing that I've looked at is something called NRF2, which helps with brain fog and oxidative stress. So the minute I started removing the oxidative stress out of my life and the brain fog out of my life, my life has really started taking a turn. My husband and I, we pray and we meditate. So we pray daily and we meditate daily as well. And I also, about 4 months ago, I joined the gym with a trainer. So 2 times a week, I book in a trainer. And the reason why I've booked in the trainer is because if I don't have a trainer, I will not go. But I know that she's there waiting for me, and she kicks my bum just saying, are you coming? My inner critic has tried so many times to avoid going to the gym. But I'm going to the gym. And I think being self-aware, I'm a lot more self-aware now than I have ever been. And my husband and I, we're reading quite a lot of books at the moment about aging well, because we want to age well. And we've got a lot, I've still got 47 years to kind of fix up, but I'm trying to make I'm hoping the next 60 years better. And so, just reading a lot of books on the NRF2 pathway and the oxidative stress, praying, meditating, and I listen to music. Music is just an answer to my soul as well. I think music makes me so happy.
That is such a great list. I loved how you went, yep, we do this daily, we do this. I love that. That is, fabulous. And I can't believe you started another business and all of that as well.
I know.
And so, Jo, with some of the work that you're doing and, people that are finding this interesting and want to follow you, what platforms do they find you on? How do they contact you? Tell us more about that.
Well, you can find me on Instagram. So I am Joanne Blowfield on Instagram. You can also find me on my website as well, which is joblowfield.com. And you can find the podcast on there too with joblowfield.com/podcast. It's got all of our podcasts on there too. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, which is Joanne Blowfield on LinkedIn. But I would love to connect. Instagram for me is still new, so I'm still trying to figure that platform out. But if you send me a message, I'll send you one back.
Jo, it's been so delightful to have you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your energy. Like, I can feel that all the way from New Zealand on this particular call as we're recording. So excited that you continue to transform and trial different things. And I love the 3 pillars, which I'd love to have a conversation with you further about. So thank you for being on here today.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Shivani Gupta, and you've been listening to the Ask Shivani podcast, where I got to ask some questions. Thank you so much for listening. Please follow Ask Shivani on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And if you haven't done so, please go to the Apple podcast and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. It would mean a lot. Thank you.